It's 9:36 according to my clock. And this is the LUC meeting, May 7th, 2025. So aloha mai kako. Good morning, everyone. This is the May 7th, 2025 Land Use Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting in which is being held at the AC Hotel by Marriott at 1111 Bishop Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The meeting is open to the public. Court reporting transcriptions are being done from this Zoom recording of the meeting. Ms. Kwan, can you confirm that the Zoom recording is being in progress?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. For all meeting participants, I'd like to stress the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, and directly into your microphone. And before speaking each time, please state your name and identify yourself for the record. I'd also like to inform that I recently had some eye surgery and my eyes are still adjusting. So from time to time, I may ask for a little assistance to see any visuals in the room. So I appreciate your indulgence with that. This is a hybrid meeting, and please be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital Zoom record, which will be posted on YouTube. And it's also being used for court reporting purposes. And your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the public record of this event. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. I'll also share with all participants that we will be taking breaks from time to time, nominally 5 to 10 minutes every hour or so. And we will also take a lunch break, assuming the meeting proceeds through the lunch hour. And that will be a longer duration break. My name is Dan Giovanni, and I have the pleasure to serve as the LUC chair. And we currently have 9 seated commissioners. Along with me today and in person are Commissioner Yamane from Kauai, Commissioner Brian Lee, Commissioner Mel Kahele, and Commissioner Ken Hayashida and Commissioner Kamehameha Ohelo from Oahu. Commissioner Bruce U'u from Maui is going to be joining us a little later in the meeting today. So he will be joining us by Zoom. And Commissioner Carr Smith from Hawaii Island is also joining us by Zoom. And in the room today is Commissioner Miyasato from Hawaii Island. For commissioners participating by Zoom, please indicate where you are attending this meeting and if there's anyone else over the age of 18 present in the room with you. And I think that applies uniquely at this time to Commissioner Carr Smith.
Thank you, Chair. No one else in the room with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also in attendance are LUC Executive Officer Daniel Orendenker, LUC Chief Planner Scott Derrickson, LUC Chief Clerk Ariana Kwan, and LUC Attorney General John Dubio. Again, court reporting transcriptions are being done from a Zoom recording. Our first order of business is docket A87-810 Kamehameha Schools Successor Petition. It's an informal briefing on this docket from Kamehameha School petitioner to Tom Gentry and Gentry Pacific. This will be an informational briefing from the petitioner on their revised Waiawa Master Plan and Schedule. And it was submitted to Land Use Commission on February 10th, 2025. At this time, I'd like all the parties to identify themselves, and we'll start with the petitioner.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Jennifer Lim, and I'm outside counsel representing Kamehameha Schools.
Aloha kako, commissioners, staff, participants. I'm Walter Tamis, Managing Director of Kamehameha Schools Ainapoahi team.
Mr. Tanis, may I swear you in? I'm assuming you're going to be giving some testimony. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'll just swear you in now, and it's good for the day. So do you swear that your testimony today before the commission will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. From the county?
Aloha Kako, Brad Saito, Deputy Corporation Counsel. With me is Deputy Corporation Counsel Pona Arias, here for the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Mr. Rios, are you an attorney?
Yes.
So I don't need to swear either of you in.
That's correct. Thank you.
So from OPSD,
Good morning, Allison Cato, Deputy Attorney General for the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Also here with me is Aaron Senagawa from OPSD, and Ruby Edwards is somewhere that way.
let me swear on Mr. Senagawa. Mr. Senagawa, do you agree that if you provide testimony today, it will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. This time, we'd like to ask the commissioners themselves if they have any disclosures of conflicts of interest to present. So in accordance with HRS 84-14, commissioners are not allowed to take any official action affecting any business in which they are or a member of their family has a financial interest. They must therefore recuse themselves from this matter if there is any benefit, monetary or otherwise, to themselves or members of their family. Also, in accordance with legal ethical standards, commissioners should disclose any relationship, business, social, or otherwise, that they may have with the petitioner or its representatives or any other parties to this proceeding that may give rise to an allegation of bias or impropriety. Do any of the commissioners have any conflicts of interest or disclosures to make at this time?
Chair. Yeah, I just have a son that attends KS on the Big Island, but I'm able to be fair and impartial. So no financial obligations or connections except his tuition.
Thank you. That was Commissioner Miyasato. So commissioners, anybody have any objection to the continued participation of Commissioner Miyasato? Parties, any objection?
No objection from Kamehameha Schools.
Thank you. County,
No objection.
thank you. State,
No objection, thank you.
thank you. And thank you, Mr. Miyasato. Anybody else?
Commissioner Hayashida, I'm a personal friend of Walter Thames, and I do, as my company does, do some work for Kamehameha Schools.
Do you think that would influence any decision you might make in this regard?
No, not in this regard.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any objections or concerns about Commissioner Hayashida? Seeing none, petitioner?
No concerns, thank you.
Thank you. County
No objections.
and state.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hayashida. Thank you very much. Please continue with us. Anybody else? Okay. So let me briefly outline today's procedure. I will begin by acknowledging the written public testimony submitted on this matter. I will then invite members of the public who wish to provide oral testimony. Following public testimony, the staff planner will present a briefing on the staff report that has been posted for this docket. After the staff briefing, the petitioner will be invited to give their informal presentation. Upon conclusion of the petitioner's presentation, I will ask the county and then the state office of planning for any questions or comments they will have. And then commissioners will have the opportunity to ask questions of the parties. Excuse me, ask party questions for each of their presentations. I will then reopen the floor to public testimony for any new or additional oral testimony. As a reminder, this is an informational briefing only. No deliberations or actions will be taken on this matter. And public testimony may be in person or it may be by Zoom. The chair would also like to remind you that I will be calling for short breaks today from time to time, only 5 to 10 minutes every hour. As stated on today's agenda, please be informed that the relevant records and documents pertaining to this matter can be accessed for your review on the LUC website at https://luc.hawaii.gov/A87-610. At this time, I will ask if there's anybody that would like to give public testimony. Ms. Kwan, has anyone signed up to give public testimony?
We've received no written testimony, and nobody in the room or on Zoom has indicated they wanted to submit testimony on this matter.
Okay, so we have no written testimony and no public testimony in person. No one's registered.
Not at this time, Chair.
Very good. So now we'll proceed to the presentations. First, I'd like to call on Mr. Scott Derrickson to please summarize the staff report for us and any staff concerns.
Aloha kako. Scott Derrickson, Chief Planner. I'm going to do a summary of the staff report, which was submitted on May 2nd, 2025, and posted to the LUC website at that time. This is for docket number A87610, now known as the Kamehameha Schools Waiawa Project. This is an informational briefing that was requested by the petitioner to update the commission on its revised master plan and development schedule pursuant to condition number 1 of the Land Use Commission's 2022 decision and order. The A87610 docket originally involved reclassification of approximately 1,395 acres of land from the State Land Use Agricultural District to the State Urban District at Waiawa, Oahu. That's in central Oahu on the leeward side of the Ko'olau Range, adjacent to the H2 freeway. The original district boundary amendment was granted on May 17, 1988, and it was subject to 10 conditions at that time. The project was anticipated to be completed in 3 phases over the course of 12 years, or by the year 2000. In 2021, there was a motion to amend to extend time and release conditions. On June 30th, 2022, the commission submitted, finalized an order which included condition number 1, which is a subject condition that we're here today to address. And that condition 1 of the 2022 order reads, revised master plan, petitioner shall submit to the commission a revised master plan and schedule for development for the approximately 1,395 acre petition area by February 11, 2025, provided, however, that this condition may be satisfied by publication of a draft environmental impact statement that addresses the petition area prior to February 11, 2025. In 2024, the petitioner submitted its annual report. And the commission has received annual reports from 1998 through 2024 and years 2009 through 2024, which are available on the LUC's website. The petitioner also provided a PowerPoint presentation, which they're going to use today. We got that late yesterday, and it has now been posted to the LUC website. And the staff also did an analysis. And we just note that Castle and Cook Homes has been selected as a developer by the petitioner. They are also a developer of the A11793 Koa Ridge project, which includes a portion of undeveloped lands that are subject to incremental approval by the commission, which are actually adjacent to the KS Waiawa property. The development of Koa Ridge Mauka, which is that incremental section, has previously been described as being interconnected with the development of the KS Waiawa project. Some of the differences that I think are in this revised master plan from the originally approved master plan from the Gentry time was a removal of 2 golf courses, a refocusing of the housing from a leisure retirement projects to Kamehameha housing, a potential increase in the number of homes, which were 7,900 under the Gentry plan, and which could be up to 12,400 under the new Central Oahu Sustainable Communities Plan, and the inclusion of potentially some 530 additional acres of land that might require reclassification into the urban district. Also of note, the revised master plan indicates that the first residential unit might be delivered by first quarter 2036. Staff notes that that is 36 years after the initial project was supposed to be completed in the year 2000 and 48 years after the LUC originally approved the petition. Some of the questions that the staff raised in its report were, does KS plan on filing a motion to amend, to extend deadlines in condition number 11 of the 2022 order regarding the master plan infrastructure deadlines? And if petitioner knows what is the agency that they are intending to be the accepting authority for their EIS. At this time, the staff has no recommendations, as this is just an informational briefing and no action is necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Derrickson. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Derrickson?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Yamane?
just a quick question, Scott. Was this an unsolicited proposal for the briefing, or is this something staff had to kind of reach out for to get this briefing?
I think that in discussions with the petitioner that it was determined this would be a good opportunity for them to brief us on both the revised master plan, which they did meet the deadline on supplying under that condition 1, but there's also this draft EIS that's out there as well, and they'll be able to talk about how that fits in and the timing of it.
Thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions on staff report? Mr. Derrickson, do you have access to condition 11 before you?
Yes, I do.
Could you read that for the record?
Okay, condition 11 of the 2022 order reads, petitioner shall complete construction of the backbone infrastructure for the proposed Waiava Master Plan Phase A, consisting of the primary roadways and access points, internal roadways, on and off-site water and electrical system improvements, and stormwater drainage and other utility improvements by December 31, 2030. In addition, petitioner shall complete construction of similar backbone infrastructure for the proposed Waiava Master Plan Phase B by December 31, 2038.
Thank you. So we'll now proceed with petitioner's presentation. Ms. Lim.
Thank you, Chair. So as Mr. Derrickson correctly noted, today what we would like to do is just provide the commissioners an update. Now, for 2 reasons. One is there's a condition that said that we had to submit an updated master plan by this last February, and that's been done. And then as Mr. Derrickson correctly reported, we did get together informally with staff to talk about, we're going to be submitting this. Would it be appropriate to provide a presentation, or is it premature to do that? And ultimately, as he noted, it was acknowledged that it seemed best to just proactively request the opportunity to come before you, share the current conceptual master plan, maybe solicit some feedback, some ideas that you folks may have. I mean, although this project has been approved or urbanized for a long time, Kamehameha Schools hasn't had it for a very long time because it used to be under a development agreement with Gentry. So And then when Kamehameha Schools received the land back, when the development that Gentry proposed was not able to go forward, Kamehameha Schools all of a sudden received, almost 1,400 acres of land and started to pursue solar development as sort of an interim use. And Mr. Tamas will get into this in more detail. But my point in bringing it up now is, although there's been an urban approval, frankly, for decades, as Mr. Derrickson noted, Kamehameha Schools hasn't been in charge of developing this urban land for decades. It was initially going to be pursued by Gentry. So now that the land returned to KS, the solar farm developments have been approved by this commission. The solar farm developments have been developed, as you'll see through Mr. Tamas's presentation. KS in the background has been doing a lot of work and has a lot more work to do, to be honest, but a lot of work investigating what are the complexities of developing this land, what are the challenges, specifically infrastructure challenges, and what is the right development partner? Because perhaps Chair Giovanni recalls, and perhaps Commissioner Kamehameha also recalls from prior hearings, when I say recall, KS has always been clear, KS is not the developer. I mean, we all know what Kamehameha Schools does, right? And it's a charitable institution, educational institution. But they want to see this land developed and they need to team up with the right development partner. So all that's by way of background. And what I'm going to do now is pretty much turn this over to Mr. Tamas. I'll sometimes be interrupting him with some questions, but maybe before I fully turn it over and while I start sharing screen, Walter, would you please introduce yourself again to the commissioners?
Yes, aloha, Commissioners. Walter Tamas. As I mentioned, I'm a managing director at Kamehameha Schools, part of our land team, in Hawaii. I've actually been with the organization 29 years now, and I have spent most of that time in the realm of development, planning, and titling our lands. First, with the campuses, I was responsible for the building of both the Maui and Hawaii campuses. Pivoted into the commercial sector about 15 years ago. Currently oversee efforts that we have in Kapalama and Kaka'ako. And then Waiawa. Waiawa is kind of a unique sort of project for us that, I can tell you 15 years ago wasn't in our plans, but circumstances, as I'll share with you, resulted in it coming back to our control. So I'm also a member of the Stadium Authority, newly christened, and talk about tough projects. So they seem to follow me around. But in any event, thank you for your time and for indulging a little bit of my story today. So for in our agenda, we'll start today with kind of restating our purpose, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about who we are. And kind of why this project is of interest to us, before getting into the actual plan and vision for Waiawa, as well as talking about some of the technical matters of where we are and the challenges we face and the schedule and that sort of thing. So we want to present KS's updated Waiawa Master Plan development schedule for what we call a Kamehameha focused community that addresses major development challenges, but also aligns with our mission as a private educational trust that is committed to the well-being of Native Hawaiians. That might not be entirely obvious, and so hopefully I can make that connection for you. So I often find, in these sort of presentations, people generally want to hear what we're going to do or when we're going to do it. And we'll definitely get to that. But I think it's important to start with who we are, and who we are starts right here with Kelly Bernice Pohi Bishop. I think most of us understand she was a great granddaughter of Kamehameha the Great, and the last lineal descendant of Kamehameha's Ohana. So why did she form the Kamehameha Schools? that she formed it, I think is generally understood. Why she formed it, we kind of tend to forget about sometimes. And it really is because of what she saw every day, what she experienced in her lifetime, which was the demise of her people. So scholars have said, the Hawaiian population around the time of Cook in the late 1700s was anywhere between 600,000 and 1 million people. Say, for sake of argument today, let's split the difference, call it 800,000. When Pauahi was born in 1831, the population was 124,000. When she died in 1884, the population was 44,000. So she witnessed the decline of her people. A lot of it was due to health. But with that decline also came a loss of culture, loss of language. In fact, government schools during her lifetime went to English away from the Olelo that her people understood. And then their identity gets lost. So she, like a lot of the Li at that time, said, hey, what are we going to do about it? Right? And so Pauahi chose education. Emma chose health. Liliuokalani chose orphans and indigents, Lunalilo, the elderly. And that's what kind of formed the mission we have still to today. And so it's important that I state that only because when people want to understand kind of our motivations in doing things, it is about restoring people through education. That's our core mission, right? She still charges us with that today. And what did she give us? What did she enable us? Aina, land. She left behind tremendous land resources. Her significant land portfolio, which today is 370,000 acres of land. And this, much of that traces back to her legacy, including the Waiawa lands that we're talking about today. This is actually a picture. It's not that great. I hope you can see it better online. This is actually the Oahu holdings. And our lands in Waiawa are essentially a large ahupua'a that starts near Pearl Harbor and goes all the way up to the summit or the peaks of the Ko'olau Range. Lands have for a long time been the primary source of financial revenue for the trust. And we continue to rely on it till today. So for 140 years, the organization that called Kamehameha Schools has been around and been doing good things. Sometimes it was good at the time, and we look back now, maybe not so good in today's context. But we're constantly asking ourselves, what are we doing today to fulfill the perpetuity of her vision? How do we plan? How do we measure? A big step we took in 2015 was the creation of this 2040 vision. And simply put, it's a generational vision. For the first time, we were looking generationally. And we're essentially saying, within 25 years, we want to see this thriving Lahui where our learners achieve post-secondary success. So we're actually tying it to their ability to matriculate through post-secondary success. That could be college, that could be trade type education, whatever that is. What's interesting here, though, is if you will note what's missing, it doesn't say the kids fortunate enough to go to our campuses. It is meant to imply all Native Hawaiian kids. So we know what we can do at our campuses for those fortunate enough to get in. But how do we expand our support? We can't build campuses all over the place, but really it has caused us to look to partnerships and ways to fund our mission outside of the doors of our campus. And all of that takes capital. It takes resources. It takes partnering with others from government to other private sector players. So here's a snapshot infographic of the organization today. This is actually as of June 30, our fiscal year close of 2024. And so maybe I'll start on the left side. Educationally, we spend about $523 million. That was our budget for last year. You can see a lot of that spend is on campuses, preschools, scholarships, community partnerships, a lot of CapEx. 3 campuses take a lot to upkeep and administrative. Learners Reach, currently, we have 7,200 at our campuses and preschools, and another close to 87,000 or 88,000 through partnerships with the DOE, with other nonprofit education providers, to other schools, other private schools that we also support, as well as scholarships to many to advance their post-secondary careers. This is all funded by our endowment. So on the bottom right there, the color leaf represents our endowment. It was 15.2. I'm not sure exactly what it is today with the markets being the way they've been. But 98% of what's expended comes from the endowment. So that is a pretty heavy reliance on us being able to generate resources. Now, INA land, you can see on the right side of that color leaf is 31%. So 31% of that endowment is land. And so if you look above the color leaf, the land is broken up by its current use. 67% of it is conservation. That's not generating any resources. Agriculture does, in limited, but it does, and it's super important to us. We have a lot of strategies around agriculture and improving the food system. Real estate, Hawaii commercial real estate's about 4%. So the lands we're actually talking about now in Waiava, it's part of that. It's actually classified. It's intended to generate resources for the trust. So that kind of gives you an overall update of kind of how we're set up funding wise. But you know, why are you here talking about real estate, Walter? Why is Kamehameha Schools even interested in pushing a project like that? Shouldn't you just be running a school? You know, as I mentioned, we depend on our real estate to provide resources for our mission. If you had asked me 29 years ago, when I came to Kamehameha, that would have been the only answer I gave you. We just need to make money so we can run the school. Today, it's not quite that simple. Yes, we still need to make money to run the school, but how we run it, how we run our real estate, how we seek to create value, how we develop has to have a greater purpose than making money, because the way we've held land for the past 100 years has been very passive. We've chosen a very low risk profile, largely ground lease our properties, let other developers take all the risk. We sit back and collect rent, right? It's a great deal. Problem with that is other developers then decide what to do with the land. They own it, they control it. Hell, Gentry had this for 30 years, right? What we're missing the opportunity to use those activities to address the deficits in the community that we have, our Native Hawaiian people have, when we are so passive. So about 15 years ago, we said, how do we take back control and better plan, better direct the use of our lands, the projects that come out of it? You know, a developer might just say, okay, let's put a warehouse there. Maybe that's the right thing, but maybe there's other ways that we can create impact along with our need to generate resources. And I think, you know, why is that? I don't want to, you know, I don't want to restate the obvious. But we're losing so many of our young people, our graduates who've come out of our schools, who we believe we're educating to be the future leaders of Hawaii, and they're going away to college on our scholarships and not coming back. They're not coming back because they can't afford to live here. They can't afford the housing. They can't afford, the jobs don't pay enough, right? So how can we be successful as an organization when that's the outcome? We're educating the future leaders of, you know, Las Vegas or, you know, LA or wherever it is they're going. So, you know, we look at things like housing and we study kind of, this is a busy slide and I won't kind of go through it all, but basically what I'm showing here is since statehood, at the time of statehood, the cost of a home was about 3 times the median income of a family of 4. It was actually 21,000 and a family made about 7,000 at the time. Fast forward to 2022, it says it right there. I mean, median income, 113,000 and the cost of a home, 1.1 million, 10 times. Now we can say there's a lot of reasons, you know, we got foreign investment, short-term rentals, we got second home market, we got regulation, hell, land oligarchies, throw us in there too. The reality is the outcome is what it is. And it's going to take a collective effort to produce more housing. What's in the background is really hard to see is actually we went and plotted the relative permits issued by the city and county of Honolulu over time. And you can see up until about the mid 70s, we were as a community, we were cranking out housing. A lot of that was actually happening on KS land in the old leasehold land development of the time. And it really came crashing down in the mid 70s for a lot of reasons. Inflation got real high, you know, much more environmental concerns, and we were trying to do things in a better way. But it is what it is, right? And so here we are. Salaries have not climbed, costs have climbed, and there are many solutions out there. Producing more housing is a solution, we believe. And I think Waiava, as well as some of our other properties, which I'll share with you, provides part of that promise. We've been dealing with costs like everybody else. Again, this is not anything you folks don't know. It is expensive in Hawaii. It is even more expensive to build housing in Hawaii. So we've actually plotted here since 2000, the compound annual growth rate of CPI versus this is vertical housing costs. This is, forget land and infrastructure. This is just the cost to build a house, right? The walls, the floor, the fixtures. The CAGR is 4.1%. Cost to build a house versus a broader CPI index of 2.8. So it's about 50% more. Our costs to build homes are accelerating against the general cost structure of Honolulu. So, you know, part of this is just to share, like, this is hard stuff. And there's a lot of things that need to be solved to make this project, as well as other housing projects, feasible. Okay, so I'll jump into, so thank you for your patience with that. I'll jump kind of get into kind of KS at a lower level around our AINA and our vision for Waiava. So I'll start with this Olelo no Eau, I Hawaii no na Hawaii I ka AINA, right? So our belief that AINA is core to Hawaiian identity, well-being, and it frames our history, traditions, and relationships. We have to keep this at the forefront with anything we do, including urban development, including for reforestation or watershed development. It's just a way for us to keep connected to the fact that AINA is so important to our people and our culture. Now, we take a regional approach. When you have the amount of land we have in so many places that we have it, we realize everywhere is different. So as stewards, we cannot think that we have one solution for everything. We think by moku or region. And our approach is to assess the needs of each moku or each region and come up with solutions that are needed in that area. So, but we do categorize it around these 6 elements of education, housing, infrastructure, which includes transportation equity, business and jobs, health, and just the healthiness and care of the AINA. So every region is different. I would be sitting here, you know, if I were doing something in Kahala, our approach there would be very different than here in Waiava or in Waipahu. Just in terms of the need of that community is different, the opportunities are different, and so KS strategies will be very different. I actually have kind of been riding this journey the last 15 years. This is a slide that I think we all know what this slide depicts. It depicts our transit system, not all of it, basically from Waipahu, because we don't control any land west of that station. But we recognized, and this is not something that informed the Gentry plan, but we recognized that we got back control of Waiava 10 or so years ago, that rail was coming. And like we did with all our other lands, we started to identify the opportunity that KS could participate in making the most out of this, what I call our collective investment into transit, because we're all paying for this, right? And we identified lands in 5 areas along the transit line: Waipahu, these lands in Waiava, Kaunohi, which is the Aiea area, Kapalama, and Kaka'ako. Now, we started in Kaka'ako. Maybe you've been down to the Salt area, but that development is ongoing. We're actually in the middle of it. We've produced almost 1,400 homes there. We have 3,000 under contract. One project just broke ground. Kapalama, we're working on our first retail project and negotiating a deal with the first housing project there now, potentially 5,000 homes. Kaunohi's furthest behind, probably a couple thousand homes there, but we have to work with a lessee that owns Pro Ridge. Waipahu is in for actually LIHTC funding for an affordable project in Waipahu right now. But Waiava is the biggest opportunity across this landscape for Kamehameha and for the community. So it is a significant, as you see, 12,400 potentially homes. Across this strategy, we could get to 25,000.
Walter, I have a question for clarification. You're talking really good numbers about housing getting developed and housing that's in the pipeline. For the commissioner's clarification, is that housing that Kamehameha Schools is actually developing? Or is there some other arrangement?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. So we're not a housing developer. So we take back control of our lands. We come up with the assessment of what a community or region needs, and we develop master plans. Our goal then is working with government, right? Working with other developers, community organizations, how to best execute that master plan. As a nonprofit charitable trust, we cannot actually do real estate dealer activity. So, developing a tower and selling 400 condo units, we just simply could not do that in our tax world, nor could we develop 12,000 homes in Waiava. We can own and passively be a landlord of retail or industrial and that sort of thing, which is why we tend to do a lot of leasing. But yeah, we're not a developer. But I think, our role is, as we see it, is to kind of create the most optimum environment for development to happen and to create the most optimum plan, because most developers will come in. If you take a block in Kaka'ako, they'll just try to do the best thing on that block, and it may not relate to what's happening to anything around it. So we're able to curate and orchestrate that, and between multiple blocks in an urban master plan, and very similarly in a suburban master plan, a greenfield project like this, our intention is not to build a single house, but it is to drive a plan that meets the needs, housing, retail and commercial and amenities, kind of the live work experience that we all think this island needs to head to. And the connection to transit is key. So that's kind of our role in it. And it's why, and I'll get to this in a minute and introduce them more formally, but getting a development partner that we can see eye to eye with is super important. So here's our kind of axonometric view of Waiava. And the purpose here is that, you know, as excited I get about building housing, a housing has to be part of a community, and a community has to be part of an area and a region in Ahupua'a. And in Ahupua'a, everything has to work together, and we have to have that mindset in our planning and management of our lands. And so you can see the area highlighted in yellow is, can you hear still? Okay, still hear me. Is the area that we're talking about for our Waiava plan, but it's part of a larger Ahupua'a for Kamehameha that includes watershed and conservation lands going all the way up Mauka. It includes shoreline, agriculture, and other educational activities down Makai right near Pearl Harbor. So that is a key part of how we think about this plan that probably most developers would not be. So for Waiava, you know, a few slides ago, I did share kind of how we think about things regionally and the different buckets. So when we sit back and we look at Waiava on total, you know, we see the opportunity for education to happen here. We see housing opportunities for Kama'aina for Native Hawaiians. You know, we'd love to see DHHL have a part in this. We see connection to infrastructure, super important, solar. We see business needs to thrive here. Retail services, the things you need in your living every day. You know, we see health, walkability, alahele. We see just preservation of Aina and pursuing ag where it makes sense. The colors represent kind of where the yellow colors are things we would see in what would be this Waiava development. Blue would be Mauka, and Makai. Green. I'm sorry, green would be Mauka and blue would be Makai. Okay, so our plan. This is a slide mainly the intent of which is to kind of orient us. This is that yellow area that we had shown previously. So the red line, maybe if we look at the slide on the right, the picture on the right, the red line represents the current urban area, the 1,395 acre urban area. You can see it's within what we're now identifying as our plan area. The blue hatched area are the solar projects, the interim use solar projects that are actually built now. And then the plan on the left kind of overlays the current plan. So you can see there are expansions beyond the current urban area of about, right now, about 530 acres. And we believe at this point that would help us maximize the housing as planned to 12,400. The colors represent the uses. The yellow is residential and blue would be schools. The green, the darker green would be parks. Commercial would be red. And then the lighter green is more of the open space. It's hard to tell on that map, but trust me, there's some lighter green that's open space and ravines and that sort of thing.
If I could, Walter, I want to just, again, another clarification question. On the Waiava impact returns slide, this is one example. One of the items was conservation and watershed management over about 1,050 acres. So is that within the master plan footprint that we have depicted on this slide?
No, that would be Mauka. That would be above, in the area above the plan. So that scorecard is an Ahupua'a scorecard. So it's not defined only by the 2,000 acres of the master plan.
Thanks for that. And similarly, the Kai Kipuka tenants that was noted on that slide. right here. Is that within the master plan?
No, that would be in the Mackay area near the Pearl Harbor.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Yeah, so if there's any questions on that, I think the areas that are intended to be within, the impact areas intended to be within the plan would be the yellow colored boxes. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the history. Our records with Gentry actually go back to discussions as early as 1985. I was almost still a student at Kamehameha at the time. It's kind of scary. But as you can see, you know, and as has been covered since 1988, 1,395 acres of urban land was designated as urban. The Gentry team did take that through county and received zoning 2 separate times for about 1,000 acres, over 1,000 acres, and seemed ready to go. 2008. What happened? Well, a lot of things happened in 2008. Not good. And project, you know, was impacted and was not feasible, and the agreement was terminated. It took us a few years to work that out and settle that. So Kamehameha got control sometime in 2012. And so, you know, not really having a plan or really being set up to deal with greenfield development at the time, we felt let's get some interim use. You know, we know there are statewide energy goals in play. Let's see how we can contribute to that for now and give us some productivity out of these lands while we figure out the path forward, while we try to create a vision that we're happy with, but that would also interest a developer to come and join us. So 2012, we started working on the solar uses, and in parallel, began working on a plan for a new vision. And some of it was covered, and I'll cover it again in a few slides, the difference between what we're proposing today and what Gentry proposed previously. This did include visits with the Land Use Commission in 2014 for solar. We had a presentation in 2020, right before everything shut down for COVID. Came back in 2022. Our engagement with Castle and Cook started almost 2 years ago, part of a very long process to try to identify a development partner. And they've brought a lot to our understanding of what this development will take. Because as I've mentioned, we will not be the developer for homes at Waiawa. So the Gentry plan, I thought it was an appropriate plan for 1985. I think if you think about, you know, developments at the time, golf course centered, leisure, retirement communities, kind of made sense. You know, 2014, we're like, that makes no sense. That's not meeting the needs of our community, of our people. Certainly was not meeting Kamehameha Schools' needs as an organization. So we wanted to reorient that plan away from a golf course centered community. And that meant major changes to the plan, to the footprint. You know, we want to offer Waiawa as a Kamehameha community. And we use that word because there's a lot of descriptors out there for housing. I just like to think of it as housing that local people want and can afford at all levels. And that's why we use Kamehameha housing as a kind of a goal for Waiawa. We also think we need a lot more of it. And so a push to really like, how much can we do and how big does this site need to be, given all of its challenges and topographies? Can we get to 12,400? And that is our hope.
And Walter, would you let the commissioners know, where did that 12,400 number come from? Did KS just dream that up one day?
I would have dreamt bigger, actually, but this is from the Central Oahu Sustainable Communities Plan, and it's identified as an urban growth area. So these lands have been held for a long time with the idea that this would be urban.
And maybe since this is the Land Use Commission, let's make it, or can you help us make it real clear to the commissioners what land is entitled and therefore subject to the Land Use Commission jurisdiction, and then what are those blue areas, just so that you know.
Yeah, so the picture on the right shows in red the current urban lands that Gentry had planned to, develop ultimately about 7,900 homes. So that's been rethought and expanded. So the areas in blue are what we currently envision as needed additional lands to get to this goal of 12,400 homes.
And as best you know, is this proposed urban footprint consistent with what's in the Central Oahu Sustainable Communities Plan?
Yes, that's my understanding. Okay, so solar, just wanted to show some progress. The systems, one is actually activated, the other is about to be, but they're both built. So the two solar farms are will be producing 66 megawatts. And, our partnerships with Clearway and AES were done in consideration of a housing plan long-term. So the leases were set up with, how we envisioned the development of Waiava to start, which is Makai, which is south, which is nearest to transit, and work its way up. So these solar lands, the current schedule would accommodate that use until we were able to convert it to housing in the future phases of the project. So the next three slides we've, kind of shared maybe for the record, the existing LUC conditions. I was thinking of reading them all, but I decided that would not be the most enjoyable thing for this meeting. But I do want to say, we have met or are planning to meet all of the LUC conditions except, as best we can tell today, the infrastructure related condition, which is third from the bottom and has already been described in the record today. And that's a function of time and where we are, and as best we could foresee in the plan going forward, given the fact, we need to go get an EIS and we need to get zoning and we need to come up with a lot of solutions to infrastructure challenges that are not apparent yet.
I think there's another condition that commissioners might be interested in. And it's unfortunate that the slide isn't terribly clear on the screen. But I'm talking about the condition that requires Kamehameha Schools to file an amendment to the existing Waiava orders. Could you let the commissioners know what the deadline is for that filing?
Yeah, so that deadline is 2030. And we have every intention of being back before you before then.
So would it be fair to say that at this point, while we don't believe that Kamehameha Schools is going to meet the infrastructure completion deadline, Kamehameha Schools will be meeting the deadline to file a motion to amend for a variety of requested amendments to get approval of the new master plan, to actually approve the building of it, and also to seek some kind of informed relief from that infrastructure deadline.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so, one might
One
ask.
second. So Ms. Lim, we've been going about an hour. I'm gonna let you tell me the right time to take a 5-minute break. Should we continue for another 5, 10 minutes, or should we take a break now?
Let me turn to my clients. We only have about 6 more slides, but they may be slides that are of great interest. We don't want people getting uncomfortable.
Take a break.
Okay, so it's 10:37. We'll be back at 10:45. Okay, it's 10:46. We're back on the record. And Ms. Lim, please continue.
And actually, I'll ask Mr. Tamas to please continue. We're on slide 31, progress through volatility.
Okay, so since 2020, and the last time that I was here, sharing an update, I did want to give a sense of, what we've been working on and maybe what we haven't worked on. I think I mentioned earlier, right after we came in to present, to the Land Use Commission in January of 2020, COVID hit. And I can tell you, as a real estate company that has, close to over 800 tenants, the better part of the next year was really just trying to navigate our way and our tenants' way through that. We nonetheless, kind of picked Guayaba back up very soon thereafter and began to refine our plan with an intent at the time of, hey, should go in and get an EIS process started. I know enough to know we sometimes fall in love with our ideas and our plans. And, it did kind of hit us that, that's going to set us down a path that at the end of it, we got to know we have a partner willing to do this project with us. And because we can only make so many representations as the non-developer landowner. And so we kind of pivoted a couple of years ago, and we said, we need to get a developer first. We need to have someone that can come in and understand our vision and what we're trying to do, the risks, the skills to overcome the challenges, and they got to be bought in all the way through the process. The worst thing in the world for Kamehameha would be to run through an entitlement process like an environmental impact statement and then be sitting there and the market says, oh, we don't want to do that, Walter. It's not like we're going to do it. So that became, really in the last 2 years, the number one priority. And so that process has concluded. And we've begun to really bring on the consulting team and to dig into the challenges that the project presents, but also the promise that it delivers. And our development partner, who is here and represented today, should there be any questions for them, is Castle & Cook. And what were we looking for besides kind of someone that would be willing to ride with us and buy into our vision? Well, first and foremost, experience, direct experience getting master plan communities built. Like that was criteria one. I think we are all sit here familiar with their work in Mililani and Mililani Malka, Rokunia, and what they're currently doing in Koa Ridge, which is right across H2 from this project and has future dependencies on this project. That's not lost on us either. The ability to navigate through the development challenges and the infrastructure challenges, that work with agencies, to take projects out to the markets to get financing. This was the type of partner we needed. The topography makes for great views, but it also makes a more challenging development. Experience in Central Oahu, in the communities that this project will serve, perhaps even impact, is important to be standing side by side with us through those engagement processes to come. Their willingness to collaborate and not just be, hey, we're Cass and Cook, we're going to do it this way, but to really kind of sit and understand what it is we're trying to do and the community we see. And then, lastly, this is a long-term deal. This is a long-term partnership needed. What's interesting, along the way, they had kind of shared with me that the history of Cass and Cook, the Cooks were actually involved in the Royal School and teaching ali'i like Pauahi and her ohana. So there's this almost neat connection that goes back to the 1800s between our organizations. And so we feel pretty confident that we have a partner that can actually help us deliver this project today. Now, infrastructure is a major challenge. There's 4 primary items that we got to explore and that we are exploring: transportation, wastewater, water, and the mass grading. It's a complex puzzle. Our plan to come from the Pearl Harbor side, the Mackay side, does depend on existing intersections, which the levels of service are bad. There are assumptions that we had made some years ago around, transit investments at Pearl Highlands that are right now falling out of the plan. And so we need to kind of consider how we're going to accommodate the connectivity to that station, or at least work with HART to ensure those plans are brought back. Regional wastewater, the city has plans. Those plans have changed, but they've been delayed. The regional sewer tunnel that we had envisioned servicing the project won't be complete till 2035. So as we kind of even begin our project, we're going to need to come up with some incremental solutions working with the county, because wastewater has to go somewhere. Yeah. Potable and non-potable water, these are other challenges we have. There are water sources, wells on site now, but the facilities for their storage, transmission, delivery to projects are all not there. But we have begun work with Board of Water Supply and conversations with Seaworm as well. And then, grading, creating a community of homes and businesses in a largely sloping site will take a bunch of work, and involve a lot of costs that ultimately need to be accommodated. So these are just some of, when we talk about due diligence, that it is this sort of due diligence that's probably most critical for a project like this right now. Even starting small, you got to make sure that the infrastructure is sized for starting small. Because if you go big with infrastructure up front and you start small, it's just economically not going to work. So that's a big part of the challenge that we have.
Walter, I have a question. Excuse me. Walter, I have a question, because you and I spoke to this commission in the past, and I know at that time, Kamehameha Schools was engaging in due diligence and had retained consultants to assist with that process. But that's what's happening now too. So could you explain to the commissioners what's different?
Yeah, it's just a different level. A plan is 2-dimensional. A project is 3-dimensional, right? And you possess information at a certain point, and part of due diligence, you uncover new information and you go deeper, and you to the point where this will end in engineering schematics. Like, that process is one that it just gets better and more refined and more detailed and more figured out along the way. So it doesn't mean that what we had a few years back was worthless. It was the level of information that gave us confidence at the time. We're sitting here today knowing that to really effectuate this development, it has to be much more detailed. It has to be informed by the agencies and the plans they have, and we're working with them and with the economics of today too. So it's just it just takes us to a greater level of detail and refinement to give us confidence that this project is feasible.
And would you say that the involvement of a development partner enriches that process that you're in right now?
Absolutely. If we're doing a high rise in Kakako, I feel much more comfortable myself. But this is horizontal development, and it's why we targeted a developer like Castle and Cook, because that is their kind of a core competency for their organization. Okay, so next steps. We do have a slide that has a very detailed schedule with a lot more lines on it, but at the highest level, we are in the stage of refining plan and feasibility. We're bringing on a land planner as well to help to define at a much greater detail than what you see today, what this community is going to be like, interior roads, lots, that sort of thing. Community engagement. We know that communities, you gotta win community over. And we have a pretty well-defined practice that at Kamehameha for a lot of different types of community engagement. This is one that needs to happen because this project will have, impact. Engaging government officials in much more formal ways, all gearing up to, we foresee as of today, publishing the EIS prep notice next year. Obtaining that final approval in 2027, returning to the LUC in 2029, and getting zoning in 2030. All of that hopefully would lead to us being able to start our infrastructure in 2034, and as mentioned, first home deliveries in 2036. Now, this is what we think it is today. Would we want it to go faster? Absolutely. If there are ways and ideas that any of you have that will help this go faster, we're all open ears.
Who's that?
Yeah.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamus, what is the time span between 2030 and 2034? Is that permitting and engineering?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, so if that could be accelerated, we'll be all for that, trust me. This slide just kind of depicts that in more detail. There isn't really anything different, but at least the intent of showing this is you can kind of see how the activities are dependent upon one another. From a timing perspective, land use commission, zoning, design and permitting, backbone infrastructure, and then ultimately housing delivery. And that will go out for decades, much like development of other large master plan communities have experienced. Okay, so, at a high level, we're talking about 2,000 acres of project area, as best as we can tell. This will obviously be more exactly defined by the time we come back to you for action. Up to 12,400 homes. We'd love to see that many built. The due diligence and the engineering and the capacity of infrastructure is going to shape that. So it's all about, bringing the solutions together to enable a project of this size. Right now, affordability is at 30%. That's what's required by the city and county of Honolulu. It's both defined by HHFDC and HUD and the current requirement. Will it mean that we don't try to exceed that? No, that doesn't mean that. If it's financially feasible to deliver more affordable housing, we've found that it's actually the lower risk housing to deliver because it goes like hotcakes. In Kaka'ako, we have a 20% affordable requirement with HCDA in our master plan. We're at 37% right now, and we'll probably complete our plan around there, 35 to 37%. And it comes down to feasibility and our desire to have as much affordable as we can while still achieving the community that we want and the economic needs of the organization. So, but that's what the requirement is, and we wouldn't do any less than that. Commercial and commercial mixed use, I think, is a big part of community design now. The idea that people live here and they shop and work here and they, go to school here, it's not the best. And I think we want to integrate that as much as possible across this plan. Obviously, schools, parks, open space, those amenities are critical to the community that we envision. And the solar plans will be, intent is to be decommissioned to make way for housing. I would point out that the Clearway Solar project is actually, if you look at the drawing, it's in an area of kind of water conservation. We're actually not permitted to build housing there. So it does open up the possibility that long-term we could renew with them or anyone else or pursue who knows what technology might be applicable at that time. But that's, this just shows that transaction, that lease ends in 2054. So last slide, promise. So key takeaways. We really want to see a Kamehameha community built here in Waiava, and we believe that the plan that we're working on now is viable. Significant due diligence is required to identify the best path forward in creating this vibrant community we envision. Developing a master plan community of this size is complex and takes significant effort and time to identify a feasible approach. So our master plan for Waiava, it has to be feasible. A plan that is not feasible is not a plan. So that is part of the many aspects of this project we need to figure out. But I'll leave you with this. I mean, we would not be here if we didn't believe this project was both sorely needed for the issues we have of today. We wouldn't be here if we didn't feel that providing communities like this and housing, doesn't support our mission and keeping our kids home, or at least giving them the opportunity to be here and be leaders here in this community. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think it was feasible, given the information that we have and what we know about the project. So this is a presentation. We don't have any real asks of the commission, but I guess I'll leave you with one. I guess if there's trust we ask for, it's just trust our intent, that our intention to make this happen is there. And we can't make a whole lot of promises about what feasibility will look like and how we'll solve for water and those things, but our intent is to solve for them. And so we will learn through the EIS process, through community engagement. We will learn from the government partners that we're working with and what their plans are. Due diligence will certainly change things along the way. But trust that we want to see this happen, and that we're going to work incredibly hard to make it so. So mahalo.
Walter, I just always have to get the last word, but I do want to ask one question, and that's to address something that doesn't really come up in the PowerPoint, but it is in our written submittal, in Kamehameha's written submittal to the commission of February 10th, 2025. There's a mention in there of a potential acceleration of Phase A. Can you speak to that at all? What would be the goal in doing that, and how is that Phase A land identified?
So a kind of a theoretical phase A would be utilizing the land use we currently benefit from. If we could identify infrastructure solutions to support, kind of an early start to just get something started. Things like water, sewer, right? Readily available road connections that wouldn't be serving 12,400 homes, but could be serving a smaller, kind of as yet undefined phase of homes. We would evaluate that opportunity so long as it doesn't create additional kind of unnecessary costs. Like we'd have to, like, if we've got to redo infrastructure later to expand it, that doesn't make any sense. So it is, just kind of brainstorming, how do we get things moving faster and utilizing the existing land use and zoning that we have, but it is very critical that the infrastructure be available too.
So is it fair to say that's something that's being explored now, and if it looks feasible, maybe explored in the EIS?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that concludes my presentation. So thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Does that conclude everything Ms. Lim?
It does. We're ready for questions.
Okay, commissioners, questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Tamas, thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate it, and especially you're being mindful of your trust obligations. It's not easy, but appreciate it. Two questions.
Sure.
The first one is kind of easy. Pearl Highlands parking structure, is that something you guys are supportive of?
Yes, yes. Actually, that and the connection to H2 that would bring the connectivity of Central Oahu down into that area. We think, kind of needed for rail success, and it's infrastructure that we would try to leverage our connection to.
Okay, thanks. Hope you guys don't get forced to do some of that, but never know. The second question is, are you contemplating, and I know this is not something you can commit to, but for the residential development, is that going to be a mix of fee simple and leasehold? I know the commercial is usually a leasehold thing, so just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's a great question. I would say, it's leasehold has been done and it's ended. We're not planning any leasehold housing at this point in time. As we've thought about kind of community development, whether it's urban or not, we've recognized that, people in Hawaii want the opportunity to own their home. That's what leasehold reform was. So we've reconciled that, the need to produce for sale housing and the fact that that does mean at times we need to sell Kamehameha, right? But we've tried to produce the commercial that is supported by those homes. And so we've managed to maintain ownership of commercial in the areas where we've done fee simple homes. It doesn't mean we don't like rentals. We actually like rentals too, and we think there's a place. I know in the urban core, it's probably about 15 to 20% of a given area you can do it rentals. And to the extent that we do enter into rental housing projects, we tend to keep the land and execute that under a lease. But we recognize the market seeks for sale housing, and so our plans right now would be featured in Waiawa.
Thank you, Mr. Tamas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners? Mr. Kahele.
Sure, I got a question, Mr. Timus. Mr. Timus, so your current Coal Ridge project that you're currently working on, you're looking at building 3,700 homes. That's on Coca Boulevard, I believe.
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner. Kamehameha Schools is not involved in Coal Ridge. That's Castle and Cook.
Oh,
They would be our partner here as well.
so your project is gonna be on the opposite end, Mackay or Mauka of Coal Ridge.
We are across H2
Right,
from the
right,
current Core Ridge.
right.
And my understanding is Castle and Cook's Core Ridge there. There is a piece that is on our side and adjacent to us, but it's not related to our project.
Thank you.
Commissioners. Kamehameha, hello.
Hello, and mahalo for your presentation. Several times in, the slides, I see the word Kamehameha come up. So how is KS defining that when it comes to this development?
Yeah, just local people, targeting local people, local buyers that, are here that are, looking for that first home or looking to move up the housing ladder. We're not defining it any other way at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what you wouldn't see is, like some developers start a project and open a sales office in Tokyo or Hong Kong. You're not gonna see that. Yeah.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Yamani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate the historical background.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the long-term vision of Kamehameha Schools. My question, kind of curious, just out of curiosity, the land control that you guys changed from the Gentry to Kamehameha Schools land control. Tell me mechanically, contractually, lease-wise, how is that? What is the difference? And can you explain to me, how is that different? Besides you telling them what you want, what are the mechanics that allow that to happen?
Yeah. So, it's been done many ways at Kamehameha over the years. In that particular case, the agreement was structured around, KS essentially selling the land to Gentry in a master development agreement, which gave them full control of the property. There were mechanisms in how KS was compensated up front and then over time as they build out. But we were not really a party to the development. We didn't have or maintain control over kind of what they did, how they did it. It was their plan. It was their project. And it's the way that project was negotiated. I think we probably wouldn't do another one like that way. More recently, master plan development projects, we've taken a much more involved approach, where KS retains rights sometimes within the project to do certain pieces of it. We were pretty prescriptive into what we would require in terms of compliance in the agreement. It does make the negotiation of these agreements a lot more complex. Because, in the end, it has to be feasible for the partner as well. So it's why, I keep coming back to the more aligned we are in the vision and the outcome, then the easier those tend to be. And, we're kind of in the middle of that right now. But yeah, I do not see an agreement with Castle and Cook or anyone that we would just say, here, take it and go do what you guys like. Just, pay us later.
Okay, thank you. So does that mean that agreement with Gentry is no longer in effect?
Yeah, so that agreement was terminated. So we have, that was terminated and settled in 2012. So that's why Kamehameha has control of the lands again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioners. Commissioner Carter Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. The staff report asked about the EIS. I was wondering, what area of the project will the EIS cover? Is it the entire area?
Commissioner Carr-Smith, this is Jennifer Lim, and I think I'm maybe better equipped to respond to this in detail. Just tell me if I get too excruciating with the detail. So when we talk about what area would the EIS cover, it will cover the 1,395 acres that are current and the additional land that at this point Kamehameha Schools, as depicted on the various PowerPoint slides, the additional land that Kamehameha Schools intends to have request this commission to reclassify. So, you know, I don't know what prompted your question, but certainly during points of Mr. Tamas's presentation, you were hearing about the entire Ahapua'a and different land areas. No development is intended for those land areas. That's separate and apart from this master plan footprint, which is going to be somewhere between, let me say, roughly 1,400 acres to approximately 2,000 acres. And the reason why that's a little bit fuzzy, as Mr. Tamas said, is as the land planning process really gets kicked off in earnest, as the infrastructure analysis gets done, the community engagement, the engagement with government officials, and the EIS analysis, that'll inform ultimately, okay, what is really the proposed action here? And that will inform what the ultimate request to the Land Use Commission is. But so the EIS, again, as a direct action, will be the land that's existing urban, which is 1,395 acres, and then the additional land that KS would be asking the commission to reclassify.
Okay. And when do you folks anticipate coming back to us for the DBA on the other portions?
Just going to pull up the schedule, but I believe it's in 2029. I'm just flipping through. So I don't know if you can see on your screen, but right now what we're anticipating, and obviously, I mean, every schedule is subject to slippage or change, but you've heard from Mr. Tamas that there's a strong desire to get this done, particularly now that the development partner has been identified. Once the EIS is completed, which again, we're projecting final EIS acceptance, let's say the end of 2027, we would then, Kamehameha Schools would then be returning to the Land Use Commission for two things. One, a motion to amend. Okay, so that would be the amendment to the existing 1,395 acres, formally requesting relief from that particular infrastructure deadline that requires infrastructure to be built by the end of 2030. And then at the same time, or I mean, it seems like it would only be sensible to do them in tandem. There would be the motion to amend and a petition for a district boundary amendment for whatever the delta is, whatever that additional land that Kamehameha Schools has decided should be requested for reclassification. So again, right now we're projecting filing that sometime in, let's say, 2028, knowing that a district boundary amendment decision has to be rendered within 365 days of when the petition is deemed accepted. So we've put down January 2029 for that reason.
Understood. Thank you for that explanation. Who is the projected agency for accepting authority of the EIS?
So we're not sure. And you know, to be completely transparent, it's not really up to Kamehameha Schools who the accepting authority is on an EIS. This property is a little more complicated than, let's say, your typical totally, you know, has never been entitled, never been pursued with development kind of property. And one of the reasons it's different is because Gentry, back in, I think it was 87, back in the late 80s, actually prepared an EIS and processed that EIS for the Gentry plan for this land. And that was processed through the city Department of Planning and Permitting, although I think at that time it was called the Department of Land Utilization. So the city was actually the accepting authority on that EIS. And once that EIS was accepted by the city, Gentry then came to the Land Use Commission to request the reclassification of the 1,395 acres. Now, fast forward several years, and before Kamehameha Schools came to the Land Use Commission in 2014 to request approval for the initial solar farms, Kamehameha Schools approached the Department of Planning and Permitting, the director there for determination on whether that solar farm development that we were proposing triggered the need for a supplemental EIS, because it was DPP, or, DPP predecessor agency that had determined that an EIS was required and determined that that original EIS was adequate. And it was DPP at that time in 2014 that issued a written opinion saying, no supplemental EIS is required. So that complicates the matter, and it only complicates it a little bit, really, because ultimately the EIS rules that I could read if anybody's interested, but ultimately, from our perspective, we want to do an EIS that is legally defensible, that is acceptable, that checks all the boxes and is done in good faith and done thoroughly and properly. And we know that that means we've got to have the proper EIS accepting authority. It seems to us that it's either going to be the Land Use Commission or the Department of Planning and Permitting. And that is because both of those agencies are going to have a great deal of involvement. I look at the Land Use Commission's involvement as being maybe more discreet in that it'll, either hopefully grant our requested motion to amend in 2029 and grant the petition of district boundary amendment. Whereas with the city, when we are going through the city process to revisit the zoning and then get all of the numerous city approvals, many of which are discretionary, some of which are semi-discretionary, there's going to be a lot of city approvals. So which of these two agencies has the greater amount of jurisdiction over the ultimate development of this property? And that's one of the factors under the EIS rules that comes into consideration when identifying the appropriate accepting authority. But, and I'll make this my last word on it, what that rule says is that when there's more than one agency, those two agencies can get together, and we would like to see this happen, and also pursue feedback from the environmental review program on ultimately who is the proper, legally proper and most appropriate accepting authority for an EIS. So we definitely want to get that nailed down. And when I say we, I mean Kamehameha Schools. We want to get that nailed down, certainly before we go out with a prep notice. We need to ideally have something in writing confirming here's the right agency, here's why it's the right agency, and that way we know that when we're going through the door, we've done everything according to law.
Okay, thank you for that detailed answer. I did have a question. It seems like you're going to be ultimately dependent upon that sewer tunnel. I was wondering if you had a plan B for an on-site sewage treatment plant, or?
On-site would be a plan B or C or D. We have not gotten to the point of evaluating that. I think right now it's really trying to nail down the city's timing, and as well as what capacity they currently have in the system to support at least early development or earlier development than 2035.
Okay. My last comment is, I guess I was surprised to hear you talk about the for sale product. When I was listening to your presentation, and I wasn't hearing exactly whether this was for sale homes or rental homes or whatever, but when I heard about your, began to understand the non-developer landowner, I thought that would ultimately mean that these were going to be rentals. So can you just explain how I can feel more comfortable that you're not a developer, but
Yeah,
you're going to sell these?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, we would not be a developer in the sense we're not building individual homes and selling individual lots. What we would be doing is through the development agreement with the developer partner, transferring blocks of land that they would then develop into homes and sell if it's for sale product that is, targeted for that site. If it were a rental project, we would transfer land via a ground lease to a developer who would produce rental housing. Similarly, commercial would be transferred via a ground lease. So yeah, it's really a kind of a land transfer as part of the deal that would then allow the developer to effectuate for sale housing development that doesn't challenge Kamehameha School's kind of current tax status.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioners,
Chair.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Thank you again for the in-person presentation rather than just submitting to the department. I feel your update was complete for something that's so long-term and conceptual. So, I can appreciate that. And also, I think it was important that you mentioned the fact that the development of the infrastructure component cannot be done in segments. And because of that, you need to have a large land sale to cover your upfront costs. It's not something you can phase in the infrastructure. It's really hard. It's got to be complete, accepted, working. And that takes a lot of costs out of your pocket up front. So I can understand that. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on Commissioner Kamehameha's comment on your intent and focus on Kamehameha development. Yeah. I'm not sure what the county rules will be at the time when you go for permitting, but it would be nice to see some study, I guess, intent for owner-occupied first-time buyers, maybe a 1-year obligation to residency, something of that manner.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're, if you kind of go back to like why we're doing this, it is to support the tremendous need in the local market. So any and all mechanisms to support that are legal, we would pursue. It would be it'd be a shame, right, to kind of just build housing that outside people come in and buy up and live in, right? So, but we can only we got to live within the kind of the rules of Fair Housing Act and those sort of things. But so and you're right, we don't know today what the affordable housing requirements are and the levels are, and but what I can say is if you look at how Castle and Cook, and we've studied how they've kind of developed community within their projects, there is a very obvious and intentional housing ladder that is created that avails itself to the first-time home buyer, but also provides a mechanism over time for them to harvest some of that equity that is created and move up the ladder as they grow their families, and then ultimately even into senior housing as they kind of downsize and downshift. And we really like that aspect of what they've done in places like Mililani and are doing in Coral Ridge. And so it's the product is mixed, right? And it's very intentional.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, anything further? Well, I have a few questions, but first let me express my appreciation for you coming forward.
Yeah.
And let me go on record saying that I do trust your intent personally.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a few questions, but before I ask them, Ms. Lim, did you say there's people here from CNC today? Is part of your team available?
From Castle and Cook. There are, Mr. Alan Arcala is here.
Yeah, I'd like to hear first of all, let me say that it is refreshing to this commission, and me in particular, when the landowner comes forward as part of the presentation. Too often we hear from a leasee or a developer, but we don't see the landowner. And to hear directly from the landowner in terms of his vision and his intent and his commitment is really appreciated and refreshing. But we also need to recognize that you're not the developer. And you need to have, as you've stated, a common perspective with your partner, your developer. I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear from the developer and just have him go on record what his vision is, what for this project, what his perspective is, and how it aligns with yours. So can we have that person come forward?
Mr. Arakawa is taking a seat. I also note with him is Ms. Laura Kodama, also from Castle and Cook Hawaii Homes.
Mr. Arakawa, do you swear your testimony today will be the truth? Please proceed to introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Alan Arakawa, Vice President of Residential Operations for Castle and Cook Homes, Hawaii.
And what is your vision for this project at this point in time?
You know, the vision is very much aligned with, very much aligned with the vision articulated by Mr. Damus. I think you could see from the presentation, he mentioned Kamehameha housing is very much consistent with what Castle and Cook has done for over 50 years now. When you look at Mililani Mauka, Royal Kunia, and we take great pride in that the vast majority of our buyers actually are Hawaii residents. And many of our buyers actually, as Mr. Thamus mentioned, move up within the communities that we built, right? We create this housing ladder and we take a lot of pride in that as well.
So thank you. Why don't you stand by just in case that some of these questions are
Sure.
Will be steered to you by Ms. Lynn. I appreciate my fellow commissioners asking the questions about the Kamehameha housing, and I don't question your intent. But there's a great expression that is attached to all Kamehameha schools advertising for your schools. And I think it's to the extent permitted by law or something to that effect. So can you represent, and you said something similar here today about to the extent permitted by law, you want this housing to go to local families. What are you doing to assure that that is in fact the case?
You know, so a lot of it's about building up awareness for the project, that it's coming, in how you market it, the brokers that you use. You know, in Kaka'ako, we don't have a full list of every buyer and every project, but in talking with the developers, you know, a lot of their marketing was driven, including Castle and Cook, in a project in Kaka'ako, was targeting the local buyers. And it's like getting the word out and having them be kind of first in line, you know, at the properties. We cannot, by law, we are unable to just target a person for housing that's not fair to everyone. And so it takes some, you know, it takes some finesse, and it takes a kind of a strategy of making the public aware. Castle and Cook does a great job with their friends and family program. If you're a Castle and Cook owner, you kind of get notice ahead of time when they have new projects coming out. And it's those kind of strategies that you have to use so you don't kind of come across and get sued because of you're violating some federal, you know, Fair Housing Act. So those are the strategies we've used in the past. You know, if there are other ideas and strategies to use, we certainly want to continue it. If you have any of those thoughts and whatnot, you know, when you make homes available, you got to kind of get the word out to the people you're targeting.
Agreed. That you got to keep focused on it,
Yep.
and you got to abide by the laws of the
Yep.
land. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna go back a little bit. to when we last saw you and we did the DNO, which we put in place with, that was referenced earlier in 2022, et cetera. Condition 11 about the infrastructure, et cetera. My recall, and it's a little bit fuzzy, but Ms. Lim's always more accurate than mine. Her recall's better than mine, but my recall is that the presentation at the time was this infrastructure is expensive. It's got to be done up front. It's tough to do up front. At the time, Kamehameha Schools put up a slide that said their endowment was about $10 billion, and today it's $15 billion. So somewhere in those last few years, you've grown by several $billion, but yet hopefully some of that money can find its way to this infrastructure. And in fact, that was the intent, and putting that 10-year condition on that would actually happen. And in fact, revenue would be received from the solar farms through lease rents, et cetera, that would help pay for that infrastructure. So I guess my question is, and I don't want to go back and rehash all that stuff, but on a looking forward basis, how are you going to pay for this infrastructure? What are the source of funds between you and Castle and Cook to get this infrastructure built?
I would appreciate Alan's manao on this as well, because they'll be key in it. But I mean, let me just address the endowment part of it. You know, we don't spend from the corpus to fund projects. The corpus exists to fund our operations. Kamehameha Schools, whether it's this kind of project or maybe a project we're doing in Kakako, we go and finance it like everybody else. So we depend on investor interest in our projects. They need to see, you know, an adequate risk-adjusted return to invest in it, whether that's, you know, an equity partner or a lender, because we cannot divert, you know, the endowment funds for, you know, to pay directly for projects, because it's actually a return on those projects that are, and on that endowment that's funding education. So that's just how it's set up at Kamehameha, and we have a pretty stringent spending policy that's tied to our endowment value. So we fund projects kind of just like everyone else, and so I guess Castle and Cook, having done this, they have funding ideas in mind. But essentially, you know, my view of it is, if it's a financeable project, there's money out there and interest out there in investing in these kind of projects.
Alan?
Yes, first off, you're absolutely right. The upfront infrastructure is quite substantial. But it's the nature of planned communities like these. It also makes these projects a little risky because of that huge upfront capital investment. We would be looking to invest our own equity in addition to going out to find other equity sources and debt sources to finance infrastructure and development throughout the project.
Fair enough. So where are the proceeds from the lease rents from the solar? Where do they go into the organization?
So the first dollar spent in the organization comes from real estate revenues. So what we collect in net operating income, whether it's at a solar farm, ranch lands, commercial properties, go directly into paying the bills for the school. So we're kind of the first dollar spent. Dollars that come out of the financial portfolio then fill in the gap needed to fund. So it goes right into our education programs.
So in other words, the solar farm revenues don't stay within this project. They go to the general fund, and then everything draws out of that.
Yep.
Okay. My last comment or question kind of goes to Ms. Lim, because she's got the long-term perspective on this work. Going back 40 plus years, the owner or the developer on this project has come in front of this commission and given us a 10-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 10-year plan, and a 10-year plan. And now we're looking at a 10-year plan. What's different this time is my question. Give me some confidence. I'll be long gone, but that we're not going to come back 10 years from now and ask for, we're just getting started and it's going to be 10 more years.
Thank you for the question, Chair. And it reflects a question that I think I posed to Mr. Tamas as well, which is really what's different? Because I know it's not a sense of deja vu. I know that when we were before this commission in 2022, we were talking about beginning to analyze infrastructure and next steps, and is it time to start community engagement and all of that. And recall, one thing Mr. Tamas said today is that while Kamehameha schools felt like, okay, that was the path we were going down at that time, always with the understanding, and this understanding has been articulated to the commission for years, that KS itself could never be doing the development. But when that infrastructure condition got imposed, and when we are before the commission making representations on timeframes, Kamehameha Schools takes that very seriously. So at that point, Kamehameha Schools was saying, I guess we got to roll up our sleeves and we've got to start doing this EIS and we've got to start moving forward. And then I think there was a pause, as Mr. Tamas brought up, and you realize if you do an EIS, and that EIS isn't actually what your development partner, who at that point we had not yet identified, if that EIS studies a project that's not the project that the two of you have agreed to build, all you've done is wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars, lots and lots of time, and given the community a false sense that, community members get involved in an EIS and an EIS gets accepted, and then it would basically all be for naught if there wasn't that marriage between the developer and Kamehameha Schools. So for that reason, KS said, wait, we better pull back and let's really prioritize the development partner. The development partner was always understood as an essential attribute, but it was that tension of what can we do without the development partner without getting too far ahead. So what's really different now is there is an agreement between a development partner and Kamehameha Schools. There has been, even before their memorandum of agreement was signed, Kamehameha Schools has been working with Castle and Cook Hawaii to better understand the infrastructure challenges, and they're big. And I know there are people on this commission who really understand the engineering and the construction difficulties, but the infrastructure challenges for this property are big. And we can say it's a mixed blessing, but maybe that's why Gentry never was able to really go forward, okay? So this is different now in that there is serious, expensive, heavy-duty diligence happening. And once that diligence hits a certain level, with the land planner who's been mentioned, that's somebody who's going to help Kamehameha Schools refine the plan together with Alan and Laura at Castle and Cook, then that EIS will go forward. We're not putting the cart before the horse this time. What we're trying to do is let's do it once and really do it right. And I think that that's a big difference. Kamehameha Schools always had the purest intentions, but it's just a matter of practicality. Why pursue an EIS and entitlements for a project that ultimately, like Mr. Tamas said, you may not ever find a developer who wants to build it. So now that collaboration is happening in depth up front, so that what's brought eventually to this commission for an approval on the motion to amend and the district boundary amendment is for a project that experienced people are saying, yeah, this is the project that we want to build. So I would say that that's a pretty significant difference, although I know maybe looking at the surface level, it doesn't look quite as significant.
No, I think that's a great answer. And there's a difference looking back 40 years and looking forward 10. I didn't share a very high confidence level in the 10-year forecast that was put before this commission in 2022 when you didn't have a development partner. And we were speaking purely to Mr. Tamas and his team. I feel it's different now. I think it's a higher confidence factor. I'd be interested in what you feel the confidence factor is of Kamehameha Schools and Castle and Cook, that 10 years from now, we're going to see our first house in 2036. What's your confidence factor? I know it's a guess and you won't be held accountable.
You're asking me? I'm very confident. I think that the parties have really kind of come together and agreed on what we're trying to do. It's now a question of how skilled and influential we can be to kind of knock down the barriers in our way. And that's really what development in a lot of ways is. It's like solving things. Everybody can get excited about the vision and the pretty pictures and the sales pitch, but it really is about getting down into the weeds and solving the problems that are invariably going to come up. And infrastructure, we're talking about infrastructure, but we have ideas, and you know, we know that when we sit back and just look island wide, and everybody talks about this housing shortage, and we need 60,000 homes. You know, where is that going to happen? If water is a limiting factor, if roads are a limiting factor, so we're going to have to get in there and convince others to be involved in this. And what I'm hearing, why I have confidence, is at least in my engagements, Kamehameha Schools engagements with government, with city, with county, everybody's saying the same thing. And I've never seen as close of an alignment
What is the thing they're all saying?
that we need to do things differently to help housing be successful, right? That we need to, government is, maybe we got to get involved in utilities, right? In infrastructure. And we got to help, because right now we put it on the developer, they just pass it on to the homeowner, which just means the housing. We've been in conversations where maybe we shouldn't be putting school impact fees on every project, especially in matured communities, because that's just, you know, raising the cost of everything. So there's kind of been, that has been the conversation in our experience. And so I like it. We've been in conversations about new ways to fund infrastructure. Like TIF, there's actually a bill that's kind of moving through, and the government providing tax increment financing, knowing that they're going to get the benefit of the elevated property taxes and GETs that come about from these projects. Like these are the energy around this, I think, is very different than it was 15 years ago. So no promises, but I'm as confident as I could be in a long time that we're going to, you know, produce more housing and newer communities going forward.
Hope you're right.
I do too.
I don't have anything further. Commissioners, do you? Okay, thank you very much. 1 second. Read it. City and county.
We appreciate the informational briefing. I don't think there is a matter for action that we need to take a position on at this time, but, we'll do our best to answer any questions if the commission has them.
Thank you. City and commissioners, any questions for the city and county? I heard reference to city and county working with LUC and the petitioner to decide who would be the appropriate accepting agency for the forthcoming EIS. We look forward to that cooperation from city and county.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you. OPSD.
Allison Cato. We appreciate the informative presentation and petitioner's efforts to provide an updated conceptual master plan and schedule. We don't really have any comments other than we look forward to seeing this project move forward and hopefully to receive more detailed plans going forward when they're available. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gatto. Commissioners, any questions for OPSD? Hearing none, thank you. I want to thank you guys for coming forward. I feel it was very informative. Unless any commissioners feel different, I think that you've more than fulfilled our desire to learn more about what's been going on and get the update. And we greatly appreciate the interactive, informal presentation in addition to any written updates that you give us. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, for your attention today and for letting us come forward with the presentation.
Thank you. I think we can conclude that. I'm going to do, I'm looking at the clock here. We're going to take a break at 12 o'clock.
I think you have to open up for a second round of testimony, Chair.
Oh, I do, yeah. Is there anybody who wants to testify?
Seeing none in the room and no one used the Q&A feature. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. No, we are not at recess. Please, we are not at recess. Attention, quiet, please. We're not at recess yet. I'm going to make a change in the procedural order of our meeting today. I'm going to ask the executive officer to present the tentative meeting schedule at this time. It'll just take a minute and then we'll take a break.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do not have any other meetings agendized in May. In June, we have June 4th on Maui at the MAC for the AMFAC status report. On June 18th, we will again be on Oahu for Hawaiian Memorial Park status report. On July 9th, we tentatively have scheduled the Kona to be in Kona for the U of N Bencorp final EIS submittal. That's pending their completion, though. We don't have a final document yet. August 6th will be on Maui for the Emmanuel Lutheran status report. And that takes us to the end of the schedule.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions on the tentative schedule? Any comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll close that agenda item. And again, thank you all for your attention, and we'll take a lunch recess now. It's currently 11:57. We'll be back at 12:30. Very good. We're back on the record. It's 12:37. This is LUC meeting on May 7. Commissioner Wu, thanks for joining us by Zoom. Can you confirm that you are alone in your room?
I am alone in my office in 175 North Market Street in Wailuku, Maui.
Perfect. Hopefully you don't find yourself too lonely there, but
Yeah,
okay. And Commissioner Carr-Smith, you're still the same, correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next order of business is the election of officers for the next fiscal year. This will be starting July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. It's be a 12-month term. So there's 3 positions. There's the chairman, first vice chairman, and second vice chairman. So let me describe what I think makes sense for how we proceed, but at the end of what I described, I would welcome any comments or suggestions to do it differently. But first of all, I think we should elect individual officers for each office separately rather than a slate of all three that had been done in recent years. And we'll start with the chairman, and then once that's complete, we'll do first vice chairman, and then we'll do second vice chairman. Same process. The process will be that any commissioner could nominate any other commissioner to that office. And then we would get acknowledgement from whoever that nominee is that he is willing to serve in the capacity that he so nominated. Once we arrive at a ballot of one or more commissioners, we'll hear from, I'd like to invite the nominees to make a statement to the full commission of why they agreed to be a nominee and what they would like to perform as if elected to the office. And then once we get a full complement of nominees, one or more, we'll take a roll call vote. Each commissioner could vote for one person or one nominee. And to be elected, you need a majority of the commission, or you need 5 votes. So that's it in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns?
Chair,
Commissioner Carr Smith?
did you say that we're voting individually, or you made it sound like we're gonna vote on at the end on the whole thing, or individual?
No, so for each office, the first we'll vote for the chair,
Okay,
and then we'll repeat the process for the vice chair.
got it. Thank you.
And if no one gets the mandatory 5 votes, we'll do the whole thing over again. That make sense? Everybody's nodding their head, so I think it makes sense. Okay. So let me open the floor for nominees for the position of chair for July 1 to July 1, 25. Have to do what on this? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have anybody signed up that wants to give testimony either online or in person?
Seeing none on the Q&A feature, Chair.
Any written testimony received on this matter?
None today, sir.
Okay, now may we proceed?
Yes, you may.
Okay, great. Anybody want to offer a nominee for the position of chair for the next fiscal year?
Chair.
Commissioner Miyasato.
First of all, I'd like to thank the current slate of officers for a job well done. And thank you for the opportunity. I would like to nominate Commissioner Lee for chair.
Okay, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Lee, do you accept the nomination?
Thank you. I appreciate that, and it's my honor to accept.
Okay. Later, I'll ask you to make comments why you want the position. Any other nominees? Going once? Going twice? Any other nominees? Commissioner Kamehameha, hello.
Mahalo, Chair. I just have a question. When do you term up?
I am currently a holdover commissioner. What that means is that I serve at the pleasure of the governor, and he could replace me on a 1-day notice. If he chooses not to replace me at all, then I either serve till the end of the legislative session in May 2027, or 8 years from when I started, whichever is sooner. And I think that would also be around a year and a half from now.
A year and a half?
Yeah.
And then just for clarification, this is a 1-year term of officers.
That's correct.
Mahalo for entertaining the question. I'd like to nominate our current chair, Danji.
So Kamehameha nominates me, Dan Giovanni, to be the chair.
Should you accept?
Should I accept?
Mahalo.
And first of all, let me express my appreciation for the nomination. I do appreciate it. I'm going to decline. I know I came on this board voluntarily. I've enjoyed it very much. But my whole purpose is to participate in making meaningful decisions, district boundary amendments, show cause orders, special use permits, and the like, acceptance of environmental impact statements. We've done none of that for a year, and the horizon line is they're not going to do any of it anytime soon, which I find disappointing. Especially in the context that we're often criticized to be red tape, but there's no tape out the door. I find that disappointing. So I have 1 vote as the chair, and I have 1 vote as a commissioner. I intend to use that vote appropriately as a commissioner. But thank you very, very much for your support. but I am going to decline the nomination.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I'd like
Yamane.
to nominate Commissioner Wu for chair.
Commissioner Yamane nominates Commissioner Wu to be chair. Commissioner Wu, do you accept the nomination?
Well, in all humbleness, I am shocked, but I appreciate that. But I will not. To be fair, I barely making the meetings. As far as I got this job I have, amongst with other things, it puts a burden on me. I love the meetings. I love participating in the meetings, and I will leave it right there. And I'm happy right where I'm at, my friend. Not only on Maui, but representing Maui, but representing and sharing my manaho. But thank you for that, but I will decline.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu, for clarification.
I just following the chair's lead, by the way.
Pardon me?
I'm kidding. I said I'm following your lead, Danji.
Well, if you're following my lead, you'll be chair for 2 years.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, going once, going twice.
I have a question. I don't have a nomination, but I have a question.
Sure.
So
Commissioner Kahele.
Your current term as the chair expires in June.
June 30.
So whoever's going to be the new chair, it's going to be in effect as of June,
No, July 1.
July 1st. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything further? Okay, so Commissioner Lee, please tell us why you want to be chair.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank everyone here. I learned a lot from every single person here. I think we're all here for the right reasons. And I believe that I can serve all of you equally and fairly as chair. I have had experience as chair of several state and county boards. And I feel the role of the chair is to serve and facilitate, not just to impose my opinion on others. And that's how I'll be treating it. And I look forward to serving all of you. Thank you.
So does anybody want to ask Mr. Lee any questions?
I have a general question.
Yes,
Do we need a second?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is not a motion, it's a nomination, and I explained the process and nobody had a problem with it, so, yeah. Okay, Mr. Orndenker, would you please do a roll call vote of the commissioners for whether or not to approve Commissioner Lee to be the new chair starting July 1?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Miyasato.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayashida.
Aye.
Commissioner Carson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kahele.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamehameha.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu.
Aye.
Commissioner Yamane.
No.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Chair Giovanni.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes with 7 affirmative votes.
Very good. Congratulations, Commissioner Lee. So let me open the floor to nominations for first vice chair.
Sure.
Commissioner Lee.
I would like to nominate for first vice chair Commissioner Nancy Carr Smith.
Okay. Commissioner Carr Smith, do you accept?
I would graciously accept. Thank you very much.
So, just a question that came up. I think it came up here briefly about, from Commissioner Kamehameha about holdover. So my understanding is that a holdover commissioner can hold an office. However, if they're replaced during the term of that office, it's unclear to me whether we need to have another election to replace it or whether the chairmanships just shift upwards. So that could be either a decision of this commission how to fill that role, or there might be some statute that governs us. So can I ask the Assistant Attorney General to give us some clarification on that? And the question is, if a office holder of this commission is a holdover commissioner that gets replaced by the governor during the term of their service, what happens?
It wouldn't be specifically clear. There's no statute that governs that exact scenario. My opinion would just be that you can kind of, I would guess that the first vice chair takes over, because that's, your terms are for a set period of time. So that first vice chair would probably have to fill the role, similar to any executive office.
So let me see if I understand what you said. So if the chair, but is, for whatever reason, leaves the commission during the midst of its term, you're saying we just bump up the vice chair to the chair and the second vice chair to the first vice chair,
Yes.
et cetera.
Yes.
Okay. That's fine with me. Has anybody got an issue with that? Question about it? Okay, so just for clarification, I believe that Mr. Lee is not a holdover officer. I don't know if Ms. Carr Smith is a holdover or not. Do we have clarification on that?
Yes, she's currently a holdover.
Okay, so Ms. Carr Smith is a holdover. That'll be a difference. It might come into effect, it might not. It's either at her pleasure or the governor's pleasure, right? Okay. Any other nominees for first vice chair?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Miyasato for vice chair.
Okay. Mr. Miyasato, do you accept?
I appreciate that. Thank you for the nomination, but I will respectfully decline.
Anybody else? I'm going to nominate Mr. Hayashida to be first vice chair. He's going to.
Unfortunately, this year I'm going to be traveling a lot, so I'm going to have to respectfully decline.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Hearing none. So, Mr. Horndenker, Ms. Carr Smith, tell us why you would like to be first vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I take serving on this commission seriously. It's not that I'm dying to be first chair or first vice chair, but it's my kuleana to be here, and I'm happy to be support of the chair and the rest of the commission. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a question for Ms. Carr Smith? Hearing none, Mr. Horndenker, please do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to nominate or elect Nancy Carr Smith, Commissioner Carr Smith, as first vice chair. Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Yamada.
Aye.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Aye.
Commissioner Uu.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamehameha.
Aye.
Commissioner Kahele.
Aye.
Commissioner Carr Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayashida.
Aye.
Chair Giovanni.
I abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The measure passes with 8 affirmative votes.
Great. Congratulations, Ms. Carsmith. Okay, do I have nominations for the second vice chair?
Chair,
Mr. Carsmith,
I'd like to nominate Mike Yamani as second vice chair.
Mr. Yamani, do you accept?
Thank you for the combination. I respectfully decline.
Any other nominations for second vice chair? Mr. Lee,
Chair, I would like to nominate Kuiki Kamehameha Ohelo for second vice chair.
Mr. Kamakelo, hello, do you accept?
Mahalo, Commissioner Lee. I accept.
Any other nominations? Going once, going twice? Commissioner Kamakelo, hello, tell us why you're willing to serve.
I'm here for the long haul, and as the youngest member on this commission.
You only get 8 years.
There's still a lot of room to grow, and since I've been here on the commission 3 years now, been seeing the work ramp up, and I've been seeing, the toll it takes on this commission, the commissioners and our staff. So I'm here, ready, willing to support this commission and to be present 100%. So mahalo for your confidence.
Thank you very much. And thank you for serving already. And confirm that you are not a holdover candidate.
I'm pretty sure I'm not a holdover candidate. I term out next year.
That is correct. Yep. Okay,
However, Chair,
yeah,
because of our previous administration and Governor Ige, he appointed me, I believe, in March or April. So come next year, from April 1st or something like that on, I will be a holdover.
That's not a problem.
did you go through the Senate?
I did go through Senate confirmation. However,
Following year, right?
he started me like 2 or 3 months early.
Okay.
So
Whatever it is, we'll work
just
it out.
for the record.
Yeah. I'll be gone when that comes into effect. I don't have to worry about it. Okay, let's take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to have Commissioner Kamakeo Hello, second vice chair. Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Yamane,
Aye.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Aye.
Commissioner Uu,
Aye.
Commissioner Kamakeo Hello,
Aye.
Commissioner Kahele,
Aye.
Commissioner Carr-Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Hayashida.
Aye.
Chair Giovanni.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The vote passes unanimously.
Very good, and congratulations and to you all. Hope you know what you're stepping into. Ms. Kwan, any members of the public wish to testify at this time?
Nobody on Zoom has used the Q&A feature.
Okay, so in conclusion, your new terms will take effect July 1, and I'll continue it with chair through our meetings in June, and thereafter it will turn over to the new officers. Okay. The next agenda item is the executive officer's performance evaluation for fiscal year 2025. And let me explain what I have received in the way of research and in the way of recommendations from DBED, and then open it up for any questions or concerns any commissioners might have. So I'm going to start by going back to what we did last year. What we did last year was that Commissioner Lee at the time facilitated a process by which
Commissioner Ohigashi.
Lee Ohigashi. I'm sorry, I forgot his second name is same guy. Commissioner Lee Ohigashi facilitated a process by which he issued a performance evaluation form, which each commissioner was asked to independently fill out and return to him. In addition, we requested that the executive officer himself also prepare the form and fill it out and return it. Then Commissioner Lee Ohigashi compiled those results and presented them publicly to the full commission for their consideration in an open process by which we did an evaluation of the performance of the performance officer. At the time, based on that performance evaluation, which was basically a numerical evaluation, along with other comments that were received, the commission decided what it wanted to do in terms of a performance increase in terms of compensation. And we agreed upon that by a motion and a vote, and then that was put into effect. So subsequently to that whole process, I have conferred with the director and the deputy director of DBED. And I have it in writing from them that they concur that our process was a good one and is fine, with two conditions. One condition is that the form itself be updated to reflect the perspective of DBED management. And so if you recall in your email, I asked the executive officer in the last couple of days to send each of you a copy of the performance evaluation form. This is the form that came from the deputy director of DBED. So this is the form that we will use. So the process is the same. So you will independently complete that form in your own handwriting or online computer, however you do it, and send it to the designated commissioner that we decide will be the commissioner that compiles those results. That exchange of, my understanding is, and I'm going to ask the Attorney General to confirm that this exchange of forms between each commissioner and the designee to compile them is not subject to sunshine constraint. It's a personnel matter and we can do that. Is that correct?
It's a personal matter and you can do that unless it's specifically requested by the employee who you're evaluating to have an open meeting. If that request is made, then it does need to be open.
So the deliberations on the performance evaluation is going to be an open meeting. I'm just talking about the process of filling out the forms.
No, I understand. I'm saying that if he were to say, I don't want that,
Oh,
though,
okay.
he'd have to make that request, but you guys can go how
You
you
can
want.
ask him.
Yeah, you can ask him. And if he doesn't have to say anything, he just has to request. If he requests, I'm saying you have to do
Well,
it.
let me
Does that
just
make
ask
sense?
him, do you have any, Mr. Orendaker, are you okay with the process I just described where each commissioner fills out a form individually and then it's compiled by one commissioner?
Yes, I'm okay with that, Mr. Chair.
You agree with that? And that we may communicate with each other on that matter without violation of sunshine?
That's correct.
So the first order of business would be to do that process. And then at our meeting on, I think our next meeting is June 4th, we will agendize a open discussion on the results of that compilation of evaluation scores. And we'll deliberate on his, and give him an overall performance guidance and reflection, and decide upon a recommendation for a change in his, or increase in his, I'll say the word change, because I think by the contract, we can go hold it same, or we can go up, or we can go down. So,
Especially the way the contract reads, you can give me no change to my salary. The bargaining unit 13 change to my salary, a higher amount or a lower amount to the bargaining unit 13 change, but you can't lower my.
I can't lower your rate. You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, with
So
that, okay, back on the record, 107. Okay, so, let me go backwards a little bit. So back to the form. So you will fill out a form and you have to put your name on it that you're the evaluator. And you have to give a numerical score in each of, I think, 10 or 11 categories. Whoever compiles the scores does two things. One thing is he gives an average of everybody's score in each category, and then an overall average. And second is that he provides a compiled form that shows everybody's vote on everything. So for example, Dan Giovanni, on the compiled form, you'll see a G or a DG for each one of my numerical votes. That's the transparency that we have for and facilitates the process. Any question on that? Okay. We also would request, similar to last year, that Mr. Orendanker do a self-evaluation and share that with us for our consideration as well. So there would be 9 forms plus by each commissioner, one by each commissioner and one by Mr. Orendanker. He doesn't have to do it, but we request it of him to do it. I find it helpful if he does it. So, looking at the calendar, I would like to get those forms. You each have received a form. Does anybody, any commissioner that did not receive a copy of the form from Mr. Orendanker in the last 2 days? So we all have it. So I would like to propose that you complete that form. Today is the 7th, no later than the 21st, which is 2 weeks. And that you send it to our designated person who will compile the form so that he can complete that compilation by the 1st of June and send back those results to us in advance of our meeting of June 7th. Does that make sense to everybody?
June 4th is our meeting.
Pardon me, June 4th. Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Okay, do I have a commissioner who will volunteer to be the compiler of the forms? Hearing none, I will do it. I will volunteer. So you each have your form already? I ask you to return it to me by email. And the Attorney General said you can email directly to me your form no later than the 21st. Shouldn't take you but an hour to do it, maybe 2. So find the time, get it to me as soon as you can, but no later than the 21st. And then before the end of May, I will send back to all of you the compiled results. Okay? The next provision that we received from DBED, and this is just FYI at this time, is that if we do decide to give a increase in compensation, it has to be consistent with the approved budget for the next fiscal year for the LUC. Do we have an approved budget for the LUC for next year?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do.
Okay. So there should be a line item in there somewhere for compensation adjustments?
There is not a particular line item adjustment for, for myself. The legislature doesn't do that unless it's requested.
So that's inconsistent with the guidance I got from Dane Wicker.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Dane about that, and he was a little bit inconsistent with me as well. We do have a vacant position that gives us flexibility with regard to our overall personnel budget. And Director Wicker, Deputy Director Wicker indicated that those funds could be used for.
Could or could not?
Could.
I want that in writing so that I don't, because that's what we did last time,
Mhm.
and we got a lot of conjecture about it.
Yeah.
So can I request that you request from Mr. Wicker or Mr. Tokioka that in writing in advance of our June 4th meeting, that we can use what fund, what is our,
Excess funds. It's
what fund?
excess funds, excess personnel.
Whatever it
funds.
is.
Yeah.
But can we get that in emails? Fine. I don't need a letter,
Okay.
but we need some guidance because
Hey,
there was conjecture about that last year.
in all honesty, Mr. Chair, it'd be more appropriate coming from you rather than me inquiring.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, let me summarize. You have the form. In 2 weeks or less, you're gonna complete that form and send it to me. And 1 week after that, I'm gonna have all the compiled results back to you. I will also have an indication of what kind of budget authorization we have to work with if we decide to give a dollar increase in compensation to Mr. Horndecker for his performance on a going forward basis. And then we will openly share that information and deliberate and decide how we go forward as a commission at our June 4th meeting. Anybody got any questions or comments or concerns about that process? Ms. Carr-Smith.
Chair, I have a request. I was thinking that it might be beneficial to us to have staff complete the same form.
What do you mean, staff?
The staff members under Mr. Orodenker complete the same form that we all complete. I think it would be helpful for us to know what the staff's answers are.
I think that get me right, could be wrong, but I think that there's a difference between, I think the way it's written is it's the commission's responsibility to do this job from their perspective. If I'm hearing you correctly, you say your perspective may be influenced one way or another, and you'd like to have the benefit of feedback from staff on the same form. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say what you just said, that my,
Well, then say it for yourself.
I think that it would be helpful to understand how the staff would answer the questions on the form about the executive director.
Helpful to whom and for what purpose?
Helpful to the commission.
Okay, so commissioners, do you share that feeling?
Chair, I can understand where Commissioner Carr-Smith is coming from in light of what recently happened in another department within the state that hit the news recently. But I guess for me, the downside of that is because we're putting our names on it, it's pretty hard for a staff person to not give top ratings in each category. So I think it's kind of difficult for staff to express themselves with their names on the form. And I just don't think it'll be I don't know how to say it, but I think it's hard.
Commissioner Wu?
You know, at the beginning, I had the same thought process. It might be helpful to get some insight. And you know, for us, like I speaking on behalf of myself, you know, the minimum 3 meetings a month. It's not relevant to the staff who's there every day. But in taking consideration to what Miles just said, it'll be hard for them to have an open, and they probably could and still be good open discussion in you know anything that would help us. So I'll go back to not having them do them. But initially I really thought it was a good idea. You know, I like manao from everybody. Is just what I wanted, right? Manao, but at times maybe it's hard to share when your name is on it and you actually hired. And I'm not saying anything bad will come out from it. I just saying it'll be awkward, and I don't want to put people in any awkward predicaments. That's it.
Yeah. Fair. Thank you for talking through it.
Mr. Lee.
Chair, I appreciate hearing from everybody. In the private sector, this is commonly known as a 360-degree evaluation where staff reviews their supervisor. I kind of feel okay with either way, but if the concern is whether they can be candid or not, you can always make it anonymous if that's the way everyone else feels, but I'll defer to however the majority.
Mr. Chair. Can I make a suggestion? I think it's possible for the commission at the time of the evaluation to go into executive session to ask the staff individually how they feel, if there's desired input.
So I'm going to take a little different approach. My experience, 360s are helpful, but they're always anonymous. Because of the awkward relationship that could exist or the ramifications that might come out of a review of such. And we've got to be transparent and public about this stuff. So if any staff member is going to go on the record with their name and review, it's going to be in the public record. It's not going to be in executive session, and it's going to be on the public record. So the compromise that I'm going to suggest is that it be voluntary. So if any staff member wishes to go on the record with their name and fill out a form, we would accept it. But if they do not, that's fine too. Does anybody have a problem with that approach?
Chair, I don't have a specific issue, but I will say this is ringing alarm bells in my head in terms of like where we're going with this, who's going to evaluate things. I can't cite to a specific statute or OIP opinion off my top of my head, but I worry that anything approaching this may be a violation of sunshine, maybe a violation of employment laws, maybe a violation of Mr. Orodenker's employment contract. So I would advise, though I can't give you again a specific opinion, that you don't do this.
Yeah, so I'm going to call for a motion to do this or not. Does anybody want to make a motion to do this or not?
Chair, I motion that we defer this action for the feedback in light of what the Deputy AG has advised.
We don't have time. We're going to meet on June 4th. We're going to decide today.
I make a motion that we not allow the staff to be part of this evaluation.
That's what I meant. It's when I said to defer means not to.
Well, that's the motion I'm looking for. Thank you, Commissioner Kahele. Do I have a second?
Thank you.
Commissioner Kahele, hello.
Second.
Any comments? Let's take we've done a voice vote already today. So, I mean, a roll call. This is just a voice vote. All in favor of not asking the staff to fill out the form signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So let the record show that we will not be asking the staff to fill out the form for Mr. Orendenker's performance in 2024. Okay, so now I'm going to summarize. I'm still going to give any commissioner an opportunity to be the compiler because I'm not. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see any takers. All right. So if I don't see your form by the 21st, you are derelict and I will not be asking for it and I will not be compiling it. Okay. So that's the process. And then when we meet on June 4th, you will have the benefit of everybody's evaluation, hopefully including Mr. Orendenker's if he decides to comply with our request. And we'll have an open discussion on his performance at that time. And also by that time, I will get clarification on any budget limits or constraints about our increase. Commissioner Kahale, I could tell you want to say something.
Chair, I got a request. Can you send a document in maybe Microsoft Word?
What is it now?
It's on, I believe it's in X. Yeah, it's complicated.
So that's the only version I had.
Yeah, I
you-
know. Oh,
You could do a
I did it the
PDF
last
version.
time we took the
Yeah.
evaluation.
Can you print it and then just mark it physically?
Oh, okay, I can do that. And then I'll mail it to.
Yeah, print it, scan it, print it, fill it out with a pencil or pen, and then scan it back to me.
Or I'll just mail it to Ariana under your name. Is that all right?
That's fine. She'll get it to
Make
me.
it so simple since she's gonna
Yeah,
get.
anybody that can send it to either me or Ariana, and let me ask Ariana to forward any that you receive.
Is that all right, Ariana?
Yes.
Yeah, that works. Okay,
Chair, I just have a,
Commissioner Kamehameha, hello.
so just a process question. So we submit by the 21st, and then we will be receiving the results on what date again?
28.
Got it. Mahalo.
Mr. Ayashida?
Will we get Mr. Ordenker's before we get to make our evaluation?
Yes.
Or before, or
Oh, before you do your own?
Yeah. give us perspective sometimes or not?
You can't be an ass.
That's
Let
up
me
to
be,
the
let me be
commission.
specific. Mr. Arndenker, today is May 7th. By Monday, May 12th, can you do your own form and send it to us?
Yeah.
Okay, so give it to Ariana and let me ask Ariana to send it to all of us. So you'll have it May 12th.
I'm sorry, Chair, what form are we talking about this?
Same form, but it's going to be the self-evaluation by Mr. Arndenker.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to see what he thinks of himself
Oh.
before we fill out our own.
All right, thank you.
But, so if you recall, last year he gave himself a 3 in every category.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really wasn't that helpful last year. I mean, if you found that helpful, good for you. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion on this point, this agenda item? Did I ask for a second round of testimony already?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature, Chair.
We'll move on. Do you have anything else?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be out of town until the 14th. Can I request that I get it to you on the 15th?
Yes. So I've agreed to shift that from May 12th to May 15th.
Understood.
Where you going? Okay, where am I? My eyes have gone. The next agenda item is the adoption of minutes from our meeting of April 23, 2025. Ms. Kwan, any testimony written testimony on these minutes?
No, Mr. Chair.
Any members of the public signed up to testify on the minutes?
Seeing none in the Q&A feature.
Commissioners, are there any corrections or comments on the minutes?
Comment,
Who was that?
Bruce.
Commissioner Wu?
I just want a clarity. I know the status report was sufficient, and that is for the Toyoma Gardens. Is there still an annual report to be submitted? And if it is, who's that annual report submitted to? Is it Planning Commission or State Land Use Commission?
It's to both, Commissioner.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as prepared?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Commissioner Wu. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was that? Commissioner Miyasato, second. All in favor of adoption of the minutes from April 23, signify by saying aye. So
Aye.
moved. Okay, we did the meeting schedule. Is there any other new business or questions or concerns of this commission? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.